Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on the duology Eon and Eona by Alison Goodman. Eon by Alison Goodman follows Eon, who is training to become a dragon eye, and if chosen, Eon will have the power to commune with a spirit dragon and have wealth and power beyond means. But Eon has a secret. He is not Eon, but Eona, a young girl masquerading as a boy since women are forbidden to become dragon eyes. Eona finds herself wrapped in political and court intrigue and discovers threats around every corner that not only jeopardize the fate of the ruling family, but also threatens her own identity. I absolutely adore this duology, you guys. Wow, a spectacular reading experience. I immediately finished these two books and I was like, I want to read them again and pick up on all the little tiny details that I might have missed on my first read through. So yeah, before I do get going into this this video review, I'm mostly just going to be talking about the first book in the series and then kind of vaguely focusing on the second book, but yeah, for both books in general, absolutely no spoilers. This is just going to be a general opinion piece, my thoughts on the duology, what I liked, what I disliked. So let's go. To start off with, this duology, this is what young adult fantasy should be. I've read a few young adult fantasies here and there, and the thing that always irks me about young adult fantasy is that it feels like the author feels the need to throw their characters right into the midst of the action and get it going as quickly as possible. And what Alison Goodman does, even though the action does get going fairly quickly, the thing is she builds up the characters, she builds up the world building, which is especially important in any fantasy book. So what I'm basically trying to say is that Alison Goodman took her time with the narrative, especially in the first book, really getting you into the atmosphere of this world. That way you're not too terribly confused. Because as you can see, these books, these are fairly huge books. They're quite chunky, and I like that. I like really chunky fantasy books. So yeah, these aren't just little 300-page books. They definitely take time to explore character and world building. And this may be a bold statement, but I think Alison Goodman's writing and just the fantasy nature of the world that Eona and these characters inhabit, maybe this is blasphemous, I don't know, but to me personally, I feel like these books are kind of comparable to fantasy classics like J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, Narnia and Lord of the Rings, you know. I think Alison Goodman is fairly comparable to those two guys. I don't know, like I said, maybe that's blasphemous to say, but that's kind of my personal feeling about this duology. And I guess why I make that comparison is Alison Goodman has such rich detail to this world and such depth. And if I were to ask Alison Goodman a question about this world, I have a feeling she would know the answer to that question, you know? And I think that's the job of any good fantasy writer. They know every in and out of their world, even if it's not in the book itself. If just a random stranger asked you a random question about your world, that author should be able to answer without question. And what I also really liked and appreciated about this duology is the Asian influences presented in this story. Whenever you think of some of the huge classic fantasy series like Lord of the Rings or Narnia or even a Game of Thrones, their influences come quite heavily from like the medieval era, you know, the Dark Ages and whatnot, basically English history. So I love that Alison Goodman kind of changed things up a bit. She was like, I'm not going to do the typical route, going the medieval route, I'm going to go with more Asian influences and Asian history. And I love that. It just made the book so much more exciting and a new experience. And just to talk about the characters very quickly, I absolutely loved Eona. I quickly fell in love with her. She's a great heroine to this story. She's also not perfect. I like that too. I like when the heroines are more complex. They have their flaws. They make mistakes. It makes them more human. And one of the things about Eona throughout both books, people always calling her a liar, that she's a great liar, that she's a great manipulator. And that's very, very key to her character, something very, very, very important that pops up throughout the entire series. I also really liked Eona's support team, the characters that are around her and support her essentially. We have characters like Ryko and Lady Della. And speaking of Ryko and Della, another great thing that Alison Goodman does with this duology is that she flips these notions and ideas of gender and sexuality. And that's another huge concept, just the idea of gender. Because not only do we have Eona, Eona is pretending to be a man when she in fact is a young woman. But then vice versa, we have Lady Della, who is a man who wants to be a woman. So yeah, I love that whole dynamic there between Eona and Lady Della. Something very interesting, very fascinating, just a great concept in general. As far as some other characters go, I have some conflicted feelings about Eona's sort of love interest, if you want to call it that. Prince Kygo. He was an interesting character, not your typical young adult hero, that's for sure. I definitely don't think he is very admirable at all. You definitely are more in favor of Eona throughout the books. You definitely, you almost gotta root for Eona to be by herself. You don't want her to pick any man. And then of course, every good book has to have a great villain, and I freaking love the villain in this duology, Lord Ido. Easily my favorite character. Probably one of the most fascinating, complex, interesting characters in the entire duology, in my opinion. And that's another great dynamic in this duology as well, is basically Eona versus Lord Ido. The two of them being the same coin. They both are on different sides of the same coin, and they both represent different things, but at the same time they both want the same thing. And so there's that great contrast between them, and Eona, like I said, she's not a perfect character. She always has to lie, and she has this conflict within herself about, what should I do? Should I be on the good side? Should I be on the dark side, you know? And Lord Ido representing all the things that Eona is not. Ido representing ambition and power, and part of Eona wants those same things. But then you have Kygo on the other end. Kygo representing loyalty and honor, and of course Eona wanting those things as well. So yeah, you have poor Eona in the middle, you know, which side should I go? Should I go to the good side, the dark side, what? And just to touch on the whole idea of the spirit dragons in this book, it's a very difficult, complex idea to impart in this review. You kind of have to read the books to understand the whole idea of the dragons, but they are essentially spirit dragons. That's the best way to describe them. They are not literal physical dragons that are running around blowing fire and stuff and interacting with people. So yeah, what I'm trying to say, the dragons, they're not tangible, they're more spirit-like, they're more energy-like. And something else that I liked about this duology, like I said, Goodman being heavily influenced by Asian culture and influences and whatnot. She also has a lot of the story rotating around the calendar year, and each dragon represents a month of the calendar and whatnot. And there's this very cyclical nature with the dragons and time and whatnot. So yeah, some of the world building at the start of the first book can get a little confusing and complex. You kind of just have to roll with it, and as you get deeper into the story, things get more explained in more detail, and things start to kind of piece together in your head. So yeah, if you're confused at the beginning, I think that's normal. Just give it a little while to build up and get going in your brain. So yeah, if you can't tell, I really loved this duology. So freaking good from start to finish. A really complex, interesting story, some unique premises and concepts and characters, Really, very, very unique characters, you guys. You gotta read it just alone for the unique, fascinating characters. So you guys, have you guys read this duology? What did you think? I wish I can talk in more detail with spoilers, because I would love to get further into like a book 2 discussion. But yeah, if you guys have read the series, if you want to talk spoilers, please do so down below, because I would love to continue the conversation with you. So that's it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this book review, you may like these other book reviews. Bye guys.